Make sure to subscribe to Beef Universe.
If you've read or watched interviews with serial killers, most of them either come across as slightly deranged or at least very creepy. But the focus of today's show, we must admit, seems kind of likable in the interview.
When did Jeffrey? Oh, he's probably gonna explain it. But
where Jeff tells all while sat next to his loving father.
Who was the ally? The other nigga, the Attack on Titan nigga.
Great tragedies, he told the interviewer.
Hey, for tell everything right here, Casper.
Predilection for dissecting dogs and cats as a kid. It could have led to a normal hobby like taxidermy, he added, but it didn't. And soft-spoken Jeff turned his efforts towards killing and taking apart human beings in an unimaginable fashion.
What the fuck?
I acted on my fantasies, and that's where everything went wrong, he said. Today we'll see how.
Nah, it's really killers out here in the world.
Of the infographic show, the story of Jeffrey
fucked
Dahmer,
up.
the Milwaukee Monster. If you've seen the recent movie about our killer called My Friend Dahmer, you'll see he is portrayed as a bit of.
Isn't there a show on Netflix?
Strange habits. He has few friends, but he doesn't seem
I might have to watch that.
Impulses. You'd probably not even notice him if you went to the same school. The movie was based on a graphic novel by the same name written by Durf Backdurf.
Yeah, merch.
He researched Dahmer, and this is what he had to say. There are a surprising
Wow, there's
number
real
out
killers.
there
Like, you don't ever sit there and really think there's real killers, you fucking loser. Like, I'm saying, like, there's actually people out here that be smoking niggas. Like, dead ass. Like, I'm not even gonna explain myself.
View Jeffrey Dahmer as some kind of anti-hero, a bullied kid who lashed back at the society that rejected him. This is nonsense. Dahmer was a twisted wretch whose depravity
Not gonna
was
lie,
almost
it scared
beyond
me. I was like
comprehension.
12. Damn,
So,
he was 12 when he was doing that shit.
A twisted serial killer. Well, as you already know, Dahmer had a penchant for dissecting animals that he found on the road.
This nigga's a
After
freak.
dissection, he would often dissolve the bodies in a barrel of chemicals. This
What
was
the
at his family
fuck?
home in Ohio.
Where the fuck was he
Dahmer
getting
described
chemicals
the start
from?
of his life intense, stating that his mother was often frantic and his dad always busy. He got little attention at home, and this seems to have been a catalyst to his problems.
Oh, damn, really? That was that
Psychologists
long
might say
ago?
Jeff grew up with a dysphoric family, which kind of means a family mess. It's said at one point the young Dahmer had even tried to take his own life. He had a few buddies, and they would later tell the authorities, media, and book writers about how Jeff would find bugs and small animals and dissect them. Dahmer has admitted that he wanted to see how they fitted together. His dad said as a kid, his son fell in love with bones. He loved hearing the sound they made and spent much of his time looking for them. Yep, perhaps the busy father should have looked into this morbid fascination with dead bodies and their different parts. The writing was on the wall, but it said his dad, who was an analytical chemist, just thought Jeff had a curious mind, as all scientists should. But despite all
I'm
his
so glad that shit didn't read out loud. Why do y'all spam text-to-speech every message? If the shoe fits. If you get into a serial killer, you should look up the Night Stalker, Ramirez, the Toy Box Killer, and DC Snipers. I got you.
He played tennis regularly and was in the school band for a while. He also turned up to school sometimes thinking of booze. He was a bit of a class clown, sometimes acting out seizures or pretending he had cerebral
Who's
palsy.
tough?
This became known as doing a Dahmer.
If you
This was
getting
when he
into
was in his
serial
early
killers,
teens.
you should
It's
look
then
into Richard the Night Stalker Ramirez or the Toy Box Killer or the DC Snipers. They crazy.
This is why I got rid of text-to-speech in the first place. Having to pause during videos.
that the real trouble started. Jeff realized that he was gay sometime around the age of 14. Due to the prevailing culture of the time, he had to keep that secret. He would sometimes watch a male jogger running down the road while he was hidden in the bushes. He fantasized about this guy, but he wasn't thinking about candlelit dinners and nights in front of the TV watching.
I'ma look him
Happy
up.
Days. No,
What the-
young Jeff jumped the shark, so to speak, and imagined somehow making this runner unconscious and then having sex with the lifeless body.
What the
He
fuck?
once planned to actually go through with it, waiting in the bushes armed with a baseball bat, but the jogger didn't run that day. At
What
age
the fuck?
17, with his parents still screaming at each other continually, his grades going
prevail,
downhill,
I
and his
bet.
drinking getting worse, Dahmer was at the height of his unhappiness. He did graduate though, right at the time his parents divorced. It's right after graduation, a matter of a few weeks, that Dahmer graduated from dissecting animals to dissecting humans. At age 18, he picked up a guy, Stephen Mark Hicks, who was hitchhiking to a place called Lockwood Corners, Ohio, to see a concert. He was 18, the same age as Jeff, so it doesn't seem out of the ordinary that this young guy would agree to go back to Dahmer's pad and do some drinking. Only Jeff wasn't too happy when the guy called his own bell and said he should go. No, Jeff didn't like that at all. He knocked the kid out with a dumbbell and then finished him off by strangling him with the dumbbell. He then masturbated over the corpse. When that was done, he chopped up the body and put various parts in bags and buried them. Later, he would dig up the parts and slice the flesh from the bones. He then crushed those bones and scattered what was left in woodland like one would scatter the ashes of someone they loved. That was Jeff's first murder, and as we say, it's hard to believe the man in the interviews could sit in his house paring flesh from bones. From that date in 1978,
this was 1978.
arrested in 1991, he would
Bro,
kill
it took them 13 years to arrest this nigga. Are you serious?
17 people.
17,
so
not
we can't
14.
detail every murder. What we will say is that Dahmer has few equals in the milieu of the total depravity. He didn't kill for a while as he enlisted in the army.
How is the show like? Did you watch it? Is the show good? Like, it's like,
as he was kicked out for
is it like, how is the show? Is it like in Jeffrey Dahmer's reviews, or is it a documentary? Or is it like you're Jeffrey Dahmer? Or we're watching, like, how is it?
drinking. At the time, the army didn't know or chose not to
detailed?
believe that Jeff was a rapist. He worked in the medic unit with a guy of similar age named Preston
It's
Davis.
his POV.
Davis
Nah, I'm
believed
watching that
Dahmer
tonight,
drugged
bro.
him and raped
All
him.
my, how many episodes, you know?
Press, I was
Oh, I'm
raped
watching
by
that
Jeff.
tonight. All my
I was
life, I'm
just
watching that
thankful to be
tonight.
alive to tell the story. He
All
was
my life,
replaced
I'm
by a
watching that tonight.
17-year-old named Billy Joe Capshaw, who bunked with Dahmer. Capshaw later told the press that Dahmer tied him up and raped him several times.
Yo!
I was there for another 17 months
Twitch,
with Jeff,
this is a
being
YouTube
raped
video.
and tortured.
Raped, whoa.
Capshaw said he had even
I
used
say
a
the word,
rape kit to prove it to his
Just relax. Dang, how many times we gonna say the word?
Once Dahmer is out of the army, what does he do next? During the years until his next murder,
10 to 13,
you can
I'm
see
watching
he was
that.
still active
ASAP.
regarding his devotion to being evil. He drugged young men and then had sex with their unconscious bodies.
What?
It's thought he did this around a dozen times. He also fantasized about digging up dead bodies and doing things to them. This,
What?
of course, was not convenient, and so Jeff was about to start making his own dead bodies. He waited until 1987 and then killed and dismembered another young man while living with his grandmother. Again, he masturbated over the corpse. He took it a step further though. Dahmer always said that he didn't mean to kill the first of those victims at his
This
grand's
nigga's a
place, and he
freak.
just woke up with a bloody dead man in his bed. Nonetheless, he didn't exactly get on the phone to the cops and
How did he get away with this for so
frantically explain that
long?
there had been a terrible
What?
accident. On the contrary, he chopped up the body, put the parts in a suitcase, and then boiled the flesh from the severed head in chemicals. When he had a shiny skull at the end of his cooking, he used that as a masturbation tool. After a while, he crushed that and scattered the bits. While staying with his grandmother, he killed again, employing a similar modus operandi of drugging, strangling, having some kind of intercourse with the corpse, dismembering the body, and keeping the skull after boiling. One lucky guy he brought home didn't get killed, only because his grand discovered that Jeff had company that evening. His grandmother quickly threw him out because he was a drunk, and because he brought young men home late at night, and because for some reason she smelled something foul emanating from Jeff's room. As you can imagine, when living in his own place, things got worse. He was actually arrested and later charged for drugging and sexually molesting a 13-year-old, and then arrested on a similar charge again, but prior to being sentenced, he killed again. This time,
So he's getting arrested and these niggas don't even know he's out here smoking niggas? Calling in UAVs and napalm strikes and about to get dogs and shit? How? I ain't gonna lie, is it that easy to get away with murder? Bro, it's really, I know it's easy to get away with murder in Chicago, but like, I'm starting to think it's really easy to get away with murder. Cause a lot of murder cases in Chicago don't go solved, bro. I'm starting to think it's real easy, cause how they don't know? They're arresting him and they don't even know what the
he found
hell?
a very handsome chap who was a male model. He met him in a gay bar, and even though Dahmer said he had not intended to kill that night, he felt he didn't have much choice as the model came
Oh
and
my
flirted with
God.
him. Again, after flaying the dead body and smashing up the bones, Dahmer got rid of what was left. Only this time, he kept the genitals and head, fully
What?
preserving them in acetone. He said he did this just because the guy was so good looking.
Yo!
He got 5 years probation for his sexual offense with children. This is when he went on a bit of a killing spree, almost always drugging young guys and making his unique kind of love to the corpse, then flaying the bodies or dissolving the parts in acid, and sometimes keeping the skulls. He was building a
Yo.
skull collection, something the cops would later find to their horror. He branched out, too, in terms of what he did to the bodies. Sometimes he would take photos of himself with the dead, you can see them online, and sometimes he would just keep the heads
Really?
for a while and chat with
No
them
way
and
you can
kiss
see
them.
the pictures
He would
online.
also take photos, sometimes at each stage of the dismembering process. But perhaps the
I wanna see
pinnacle
that,
of
I'm not gonna
Dahmer's
lie.
greatness was when, after drugging one young man, he decided not to kill him outright, but to drill a hole through his skull, pour in warm water, and
What
so
the-
render the victim in a vegetative state. Then he could have a kind of living slave. Dahmer would always say later that all he wanted was company and for the men
What
not
the
to
fuck?
leave. However, his victim woke up and was not exactly vegetized, saying to Dahmer, "I have a headache. What time is it?" Apparently, it was time to die. as Dahmer gave him more spiked drink and strangled the man.
Yo.
He tried this again with a 14-year-old, only this time injecting hydrochloric acid into the young boy's skull. The frontal lobe, to be exact. He then took the semi-conscious boy to his bedroom, where his previous victim's body was still laying. It said the boy saw the corpse but was too messed up to do anything. Dahmer left at one point to go get some more beers, only to find on his return that the kid was out in the street talking to 3 women. They noticed the boy was bleeding from his backside and that he was in a bad way, but when a cop turned up, Dahmer said the kid was his boyfriend. The cop didn't even think to investigate. Unbelievably, despite the women's
That's what Pac was talking about.
The cop told Dahmer to wrap the kid up and take him back home.
Yo, nah, that cop needs to be in jail, bro.
This time he died. Dahmer kept the skull and added it to his skull collection.
Nah.
He killed again and again, and not surprisingly, the neighbors complained of a stink and also noise pollution, saying that some dude uses a chainsaw at night indoors.
Yo.
Dahmer had so many body parts, and sometimes he would leave the fresh dead around so long he got a maggot infestation.
Yo.
With one body, he tried keeping it for weeks in water and salt so he could keep it fully intact, but that didn't work. It should be known that Jeffery
Ew, I just got
put
the
some
shivering me
human flesh
timbers.
and organs in the fridge so he could eat them later.
Yo.
There's even a story in the media about one of his neighbors who to this day thinks the meat sandwich Dahmer gave her could have been human meat. Dahmer finally met his match with a man called Tracy Edwards, whom Dahmer almost killed, but the sensible Edwards, who was 32 at the time, knew what was coming. He assured Dahmer he wasn't going to leave him, even though Dahmer had picked up a knife, used handcuffs on him, on only one hand, and Edwards knew what the foul smell was and what the steel drum had been used for. He stayed with Dahmer 5 hours with a swinging handcuff, as Dahmer occasionally held a knife to him and even said he was going to eat his heart. When he got his chance, Edwards punched Dahmer and ran for it. He told cops what had happened and what he had seen, and 2 cops went to Dahmer's place. There they found the Polaroids, with an astonished cop telling his partner that they were certainly not fakes. Dahmer tried to fight but was held down, whereupon a search was performed and a fresh head with flesh was quickly found. Dahmer then told the stunned cops, "For what I did, I should be dead."
So he knew he was fucked up.
Found hearts, other organs, hands, penises, bits of tissue,
Guy sounds
an
Swedish.
entire torso, skeletons, and of course, skulls. For his handiwork, he got 15 consecutive life terms in prison. He admitted everything and every detail. Some say so he would get away with being insane. That didn't happen. Psychiatrists said he was sadistic and had antisocial personality disorder, but he was sane. They also said he was amiable, charming, and amusing to chat with. Inside prison, he read a lot of books and turned to religion, and even though he'd been separated from the general population, he persuaded the authorities to move him with the others. That was Dahmer's downfall, as he was murdered by fellow inmate and fellow murderer Christopher Scarver.
Smoked his
metal
bitch
bar
ass.
From the weight room.
Smoked
Scarver
his
killed
bitch
another
ass.
guy too. Dahmer's killer later told the press that he wasn't happy about what Dahmer had done, but was also bugged out that Dahmer would make what looked like several body parts from the prison food as a way to piss off other prisoners.
Yeah, he's a freak.
He said he added ketchup to his macabre art to
He's a
imitate
freak.
blood. We'll leave you with a Dahmer quote. "The killing was a means to an end. That was the least satisfactory part. I didn't enjoy doing that. That's why I tried to create living zombies with uric acid in the drill, but it never worked. No, the killing was not the objective. I just wanted to have the person under my complete control, not having to consider their wishes, being able to keep them there as long as I wanted." This was a long show.
That's a dedicated nigga, but that's just fucked up, bro.
Countless plays, books, films, TV shows, and documentaries have been made about this man. So, what do you think about him?
Damn.
Can you explain why he would do the things
That's
he
a
did?
fucking freak.
Is there anyone worse in terms of utter strangeness?
I gotta watch these documentaries more about these killers. This shit kind of interesting.